Hello, welcome to our show. We are Business Love with Ryan. I am Ryan. Here we focus on what it takes to make your ideas happen and the steps you can follow to make it just a little bit easier. Subscribe to our podcast to join the ongoing conversation about all things startup business related. Find even more content on our YouTube channel, Ryan's Business Class. See the link in our description of this episode. So glad to have you here. Maybe we can learn something together. Enjoy. Okay, here we are, Business Love with Ryan, episode 8. I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for coming. This week we're talking about political organizations and what it takes to make a political organization. In this time, this corona time that we're experiencing, we don't have control of our own destiny. Governments have imposed extreme controls over us, and for better or worse, it is to protect the population, but many people, including myself, believe that shutting down our entire economy was a bad idea. These are not kings that make rules for us. We put them in office, and we have the right to vote them out of office if we feel their decisions are not appropriate. Anyone would like to have more say over who these people are. Anyone would like to make the rules for themselves. I think business people need to understand how they can affect the policies that matter to them. If we believe we can use business principles to build our reality, then we should include political influence as well. Let's build political influence. In this episode, we will discuss building a political organization. This could include think tanks, political analytics firms, political campaign consulting groups, or even making your own political party. In this podcast, we want to focus on where the power really is transacted for business people, and that is lobbying firms. You can make a lobbying firm, or you can approach a lobbying firm. Or to carry the point further, you can approach the party directly, but I think you'll have a hard time getting the attention that you're hoping. Or you can make your own party. A lobbying firm is a wonderful organization, though, and it's wonderful to be part of. Fancy dinners, late-night cocktail parties are standard business fare. All tax-deductible. And if you want my opinion, having a business that provides such a leisure experience on a tax-deductible basis is reason enough to get involved. Not to mention influential contacts. The old school veterans of the lobbying industry, they really do wield real power. They know how to pick up the phone and get things done. Many people owe them favors that they can call in. They handle the money and they dictate the terms. Who's to say they can't throw in a few policy sweeteners for themselves that pay dividends over their entire career? Maybe they're lobbying for the energy industry, but maybe with some of that money, they want to include a little detail about the lobbying in Washington, solidifying their position in the industry. Lobbying, by many accounts, is legalized corruption honed into an art form. But also the will of organizations that run our country. An economy is just organizations working together, and they should have a voice because they know what's best for themselves. And we depend on them to provide our lives and administer our lives to us. Money in our economy should have a voice. It's the only way to make it grow properly. So now I want to go into some news. There's been a lot of Trump catches a lot of bad press just because of the way he says things. I think sometimes he says it on purpose just to get a reaction from the press. It builds his, the amount of attention he gets. But he's been promoting hydroxychloroquine for several weeks now as a sort of an anecdotal, or based on an anecdotal basis about patients who have taken it and seem to have benefited from it. Now there's articles that talk about how hydroxychloroquine could actually cause heart problems. But if a patient is on their deathbed with coronavirus, maybe that should be a secondary consideration. And there are videos online that talk about how hydroxychloroquine actually helped people. So it's not all bad press. It's not like Trump made something up out of his head and he's just saying it on TV. But the accusation recently, and this recent week, has been that Trump somehow has a financial interest in hydroxychloroquine, and that's why he's promoting it on TV. That would be corruption. That would be using the pulpit of the president to promote your own business interest on the back of a dishonest representation. But I really don't think that's what's happening, because you can find firsthand accounts by patients who said it worked. Is it dangerous? Possibly. Should it be used? I'm not here to say. But
I just want to draw attention to how the media frames things in order to try to bias the public against a certain politician. Whether or not you agree with that politician, someday that same power could be wielded against you. And I guess you could say this is where understanding lobbying or understanding the lobbying process can really benefit you. So I want to take a minute before we go into Tech Tuesday just to say that we are discussing how to make a political environment. And in Tech Tuesday, we're going to talk about tech as a political weapon. So we'll be right back. Okay, welcome to Tech Tuesday. Today we're talking about tech as a political weapon. We've heard the expression that the pen is mightier than the sword, and I think there has never been a time in history when that has been more true. Now people's thoughts are amplified to an extreme degree. Normal individuals can put in the work to build millions of followers, millions of people that hear their voice, hear their opinions, see their photos, follow their behavior, watch their videos. And now what you say has a direct influence over other people in a way that has never happened before. A normal person who's dissatisfied with the political situation can get hundreds of thousands of impressions, tens of thousands of likes and responses and retweets and shares. And so this message from anybody who's normal, who takes the time to craft it in sort of a clever or interesting way, has the opportunity to go, well, we call it viral. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook have become the most powerful political organizations in history. Social media has replaced the evening news as the voice that you trust. But the additional reality is that it's become decentralized. Political fortunes are built on the ability to communicate with the public. So when Jack Dorsey, for instance, created Twitter, he created an ideal platform for sharing your ideas to the public, whether or not you know them, without the necessity for you to accept them into your circle, or without the need for them to even follow you. They can just go to your page, and they can see what your opinions are at any one time. They can communicate directly with you. This is a wonderful advancement in terms of a politician's ability to connect with the public. But of course, it comes with equal amount of risks because politicians have destroyed their careers and other people have outed information that has destroyed other people in a way that was never possible before. And now there's, within the last couple of years, I suppose it's been evolving right alongside all these other truths, but now there is such a thing as disinformation campaigns. Governments such as Russia have bent over backwards to spread information throughout different societies around the world that confuse the public, that infuriate the public, that inflame the senses, that might turn the public against one specific politician that Russia or Saudi Arabia or Iran, and probably United States too for that matter, don't like. If they don't like you, they're going to spread lies about you on social media from pages that look legitimate. It might even appear like people you know, or it might even appear completely above boards, but underneath the surface, they're planning to lie to you. The reason that I think this is an exaggerated phenomenon is because at the end of the day, they're still not capable of changing your votes. At least in the United States, the voting system is so decentralized and so in the hands of the local districts that it's really difficult to pull off a hack that allows you to go in and say, nope, this person votes for this other person, or to put in dead people into the system. I think if we want to solidify our election system better, we should post who everyone votes for. That way you can look at the name, you can see who they voted for, you can look for your own name and make sure that your vote was tallied correctly. And then watchdogs, for instance, could make sure that nobody's dead, that nobody voted twice, that the numbers are accurate. And so transparency is the solution to the political weaponry that is being developed in the political sphere. Now you have to ask yourself finally, how susceptible are you? How impressionable are you? How much of a crime is it when you are influenced to vote differently than you normally would have based on somebody's lies? Well, first you have to take a look in the mirror. It's your responsibility to make sure information is correct. Reacting emotionally, internalizing everything that you hear from the political sphere is a recipe for disaster. So as business owners, we just want to remember that there are tremendous political tools available to us through tech. And if we are planning on participating in politics, those tools could be turned against us, and so you need to be poised and prepared. So we're going to go into our Strategy Now session now. For Strategy Now, we're going to talk about how some of the bigger players are participating in the lobbying industry and how you can sort of get on that boat with them. We'll be right back. Yeah, now we're in Strategy Now. If you are a business leader already, I want to focus on some strategies within the arena that we're talking about today that can benefit you and your business. One thing I was looking at this week was a website called opensecrets.org. Opensecrets.org is what you might call a watchdog. They look at the way money flows through Congress. If there's some scent of corruption, they want to find out about it. They want to monitor how lobbying is happening to make sure it's legal, and just to keep tabs on the climate of lobbying, at least in Washington, which is, an advanced version of what takes place in most governments. So one thing I noticed is that there is a certain amount of money that is registered as having been paid to lobbyists for hourly fees. This is nothing compared to the amount of money that goes into campaign contributions or fulfilling all sorts of other promises or threats. But it demonstrates the degree to which firms are participating based on their intentions, how much they intend to participate. And you can see it in terms of who these players are. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the biggest lobbyist in the United States. They are the biggest lobbying client in the United States. They spend the most money trying to get politicians to do what they want them to do. Introduce bills, support bills, fight bills. It really comes down to the laws that are going to happen. I suppose there's other ways in making introductions and pressuring officials from above to do something. Like, for instance, if you get a state senator to pressure a local city mayor, it has a lot of gravity and gets that mayor to do what you want instead of just being, for instance, a local lawyer in that city and trying to get the mayor of that city to do what you want. You approach somebody above them and rain the decision down upon them. U.S. Chamber of Commerce is going to represent businesses in general. The second player is the National Association of Realtors, who would, in some sense, be also represented by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but they are one industry, and so they spend $14 million, whereas U.S. Chamber of Commerce spends over 21. So it's about 2/3 of what the overall business industry spends on lobbying just for realtors, and that is because housing is the biggest section of any economy. You have millions of houses that are all valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so it's a huge piece of the overall wealth that a country has. And they're interested in making sure the laws stay a certain way or change in a certain way. They're interested in how they are taxed. They're interested in if they're regulated to participate across state lines. They're interested in laws that prevent or allow lands to be seized and things of this nature. Beyond that, we have pharmaceuticals companies. We have Facebook is a big player. They put in about $5 million a year, which is about 25% of Chamber of Commerce. So this indicates that they are serious overperformers in the lobbying field. I'm not saying how much money changes hands in terms of campaigns and things of that nature, but it's a lot in terms of fees. Maybe there's a direct correlation. I'm assuming there is. So then, one entry that really bothered me was George Soros' Open Society Policy Center. This is a socialist, globalist, megalomaniac who's trying to convince the United States that they should be more socialist. All of their policies come down to this single truth. George Soros is European by history. He's Hungarian. He's very rich. He got his money through financial practices, sometimes manipulation. And now he's rich, and now he's pushing his money around. Who knows how much success he's having? The United States, as I've seen it, is still not socialist, so I think we're doing good. There's a strong movement in the United States to resist a lot of the policies that Open Society Policy Center wants. So I think a natural equilibrium is occurring. He can lobby as much as he wants. There's going to be a natural response to it from the public when they see programs being unrolled. So obviously I'm just against his policies. Northrop Grumman is another one. They do military contracting. So this is an example of military-industrial complex. And another one, which is Lockheed Martin, is another one. They make airplanes. They make all kinds of equipment for the military. Business Roundtable, it's like another chamber of commerce. Amazon, they lobby almost as hard as Facebook for obvious reasons. And then Comcast, they do cables, so they're a utility. And utilities are legal monopolies. And so the government always has a certain amount of incentive to put pressure on utilities. And so utilities, being companies also, the way that they exercise their ambition is mostly by trying to get the government to back off of regulation so that they can make more money, because their market acquisition is already fixed. It's already been accomplished. So the increased profitability that they're going to make is by politicians allowing them to do it. So Comcast and other utilities like Duke Energy, they're always putting their opinion into the pool. And the reason we want to bring this up is because as a business owner, let's say you want to start a real estate company, you would probably get in touch with Realtors of America, maybe become a member, maybe try to get your voice heard in that organization, and then that would allow you to be more influential in the government based on their lobbying efforts of the larger organization. So it's almost like putting on a hat to fit better into another hat. And so that's our Strategy Now session for this week. I just want to encourage you to realize that you can participate in government policy. It's much more accessible to you than you might realize. A little bit of money goes a long way. And these are people who are anxious to work with you if you have what they're looking for as well. So good luck. Okay, now we want to go into our profiles and success section. This week I want to focus on Jack Dorsey, just because we talked about Twitter already, and he's just a really interesting speaker in terms of business practices that we can learn. Usually I like to try to tie all of our sections together, and when we were talking about political weapons, I considered either talking about Jack Dorsey or I considered talking about Ayn Rand as a natural conclusion to a political topic. But I figured Jack Dorsey is a little bit more useful because he just gives so many gems in his interviews for business owners. You know, he was a normal kid. He grew up in St. Louis. He had an aptitude for business in general. He had an aptitude for coding. In university, he became a coder. But he wasn't one of these, early prodigies like Mark Zuckerberg was. He was just a normal kid, always very smart. But as he developed, he started to have his own ideas. And he developed certain principles that allowed him to get his idea developed. It's some of the things we've talked about in this course. It's something that any business owner would like to do better. And he broke it down into 10 rules of success. And I guess I'll say them and then discuss them a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about his opinion of Apple afterwards, but let's get into it. So the first one is just do it. You have an idea. You think about it until you're blue in the face, and before you know it, it's become an obsolete idea. You have to do it. You have to take action. You have to challenge yourself to take steps that put it on paper, that put it on the screen, that put it into code, that reach out and make contacts with other people. You have to recognize the real threat to your idea is not somebody stealing it, but project creep. You could be preparing to do your idea for 2 years before you even make a business plan. Yeah, I have this great idea. I've been thinking it over. It's like, all right, well, when was the last time you took a step? Well, I'm, thinking about it every day, and the idea gets a little bit clearer every day. Well, I dare say that if you had just taken some action, more clarity would have come from that than, 100 of these days. So the second rule is simplify. I like crimes and business hacks to see business truths. But for automation, simplicity is actually the thing to study, because maybe the business hack was how you rolled out the business and how you contacted individuals, and crimes can show you how information is actually used by different individuals like this. But when it comes to automation, people don't want to be impressed by the way that it looks. People don't want to be like, wow, this application is interesting and fun to use. People want to forget that they're using the application at all. That's why simplicity is so attractive. And that's why a simple design, even though it maybe doesn't look like you spent millions of dollars on it, like Facebook. The original Facebook was almost all white and blue, a few, interesting positioning of content, but that was it. And it allowed you to forget the fact that you were participating in a social network at all. It was just an extension of your mind. Whereas when you used to go onto MySpace, there was all these opportunities to customize your content and, stack widgets and capabilities, and it was just too clumsy of a process. It was your experience with MySpace was much more about you interacting with this platform than it almost even was communicating with other people. Facebook put all that out of the way. They said this platform is finite. Now use its functionalities. And they've been proved, of course. You want to observe. You want to be a student of the world. You want to be aware of the nature of things. One fortunate thing about the people I've been able to work with in this project is that they have extreme knowledge of the way social media works, and I think we're building a good product based on information more than I'm capable of performing on my own. And so being observers allows you to not make mistakes and have better ideas. So beyond that, the fourth tip is to have your own vision. People are going to be coming to you telling you what to believe about all sorts of things. They're going to tell you how to change your idea and make it better. They're going to criticize you when they think your idea is not good enough. And you have to understand why you have the vision that you have. And when they challenge you, I highly recommend that what you do is you accept their challenge. And then maybe over time, try to answer it. Try to adjust your own concepts to facilitate what that challenge is. But at the end of the day, it still has to be your own vision. And then beyond that, you have to find your working process. And it's so important to get it out of your head, to get it out on paper so that you can think about other things, so that you're free to process and free to be creative, and you're not bogged down by information that you've already thought about but that you can't see and you don't even recognize it's happening. Getting it out on paper will free your mind. Beyond that, you want to focus. You want to be able to say no to opportunities to grow in different ways, because if your company grows too fast, and this was the best point that I think I saw him make, it will scatter your focus. So Twitter, for instance, grew very slowly and deliberately. And even though it grew slowly and deliberately, which is better for keeping a focus on your idea, the next point is editing your team. So you're growing slowly and deliberately, but they didn't edit the team in the best way. And he actually went out and said, I would never do that again. And I actually think what he was saying was, I should have fired people sooner. There was people who didn't belong on the team who I kept there because we already had a relationship and they already depended on the job, and for all sorts of reasons other than what was good for the organization. And he actually said directly, I would never do that again. Editing your team is critical to a successful organization. So you have to put your organization over the feelings of workers, unfortunately. And the final one is interesting. It was create a daily note. No, I take that back. There's 3 more. Create a daily note. 1, you want to name it daily. What is your note about? But you want to put do's and don'ts on this list. And some of his examples of do's or don'ts was stay present, be vulnerable, drink only lemon water and red wine, 6 sets of exercises every day, say hello to everyone, train with the heavy bag, video journal every day, and get 7 hours of sleep. That's an example of Jack Dorsey's do list that he reads in the morning and in the night, and it doesn't change. So there might be do's and don'ts for today, but this is his ongoing do's and don'ts list. Now, when it came to the don'ts, he didn't say everything. You got to be a little bit private about what your don'ts are, but he did say some of them. Don't drink hard liquor or beer. Don't avoid eye contact. And you could probably see if you watch his videos that he's likely to do this. Don't be late. Don't set expectations that you don't meet. Don't eat sugar, don't eat wheat, don't eat lentils, don't eat dairy. And he said these sorts of do's or don'ts are good for your company too, and it's good to review with your employees. The do's and don'ts for your company are there to help you innovate and move quickly. And so, every company will be different, but those are the reasons why you would do that. And a few final points that he emphasized, but not as much. Instrument everything. Use everything. You want to use your intuition, but you want to use as much data as there is possible. Use your Google Analytics. Don't overlook sections of it, because once you become a pro, you will use all of it. You just don't recognize it how. So take some time to go into new sections that you've never looked at, for example. You want to use as much of the capacity as you have. Maybe you have 10 employees, but some of them don't have much task. Well, maybe try considering giving them extra responsibilities from some of the most bogged down employees. Balance it out. That's a classic example of not wasting your resources. And then the final one, and the one that he went into the most, because it's the most personal, I guess, he says, and whatever you do, whatever project you undertake, whether it's being the boss of a social network, or it's being a lawyer, or it's being a doctor, you want to go into it with a sense of daring and self-expression. It's about who you are, your truth, your value, how you look at yourself should be present in the work that you do. And then beyond this, it kind of comes down to the role of a shaman. You are interested in blazing a trail into the future. You recognize that people are going to see it and be inspired, but that is not your primary influence, your primary objective. Your primary objective is your own personal journey, but you're going into a new place. And so it's interesting for everyone. And so impart some of yourself in the work that you do. It's not just about getting the job done and collecting a paycheck. It's about leaving a legacy and building a portfolio and doing work that you know that you will be proud of. You'll be more successful as a result. Okay, so now I want to go into business supermodels. This is our section where we break down what it takes to develop a lobbying firm of your own. So we'll be right back. Yeah, here we are, business supermodels. This is the section, of course, where we break down a business into its fundamental components so that you can start it yourself. This week, as we are discussing political organizations, we are going to discuss what it takes to create a lobbying firm of your own. And as I said earlier, hopefully this at least gives you some insight in how to approach a lobbying firm and the type of business that they do. A lobbying firm is an organization that goes to government officials and says, we have money behind us, we want you to do this, and we'll either give you a campaign contribution, or if you don't do this, maybe we'll contribute to your competitors. There's a lot of other sorts of demands that are placed on different parties, but this is sort of the fundamental transaction that takes place. So when you want to set this up, and honestly, first you have to deal with the moral dilemma, because this is bribery in a very big way. This is extortion in a legalized way. In many countries, it's not legal at all. So you need to understand your local regulations and requirements to understand how this is done. If you understand what's possible and what rules are open to you, or what regulations don't affect you, or what dynamic will allow you to move forward, you need to take a personal inventory first. To be a lobbyist, you need to be persuasive and skilled at negotiating. So if you have a lobbying firm, you might not be the chief lobbyist. Maybe you could just organize a group of lobbyists, you just the organizing entity. But somebody needs to be skilled at negotiating and persuasive. There needs to be strong networking skills within your organization, good communication verbally or in writing, and if you can't pull off one of those, verbal communication or written communication, I would say that is the straw that breaks the camel's back. You're not ready for this business. But if you can write, or you can speak, or both, beyond that, it comes down to understanding the legislative process. How are the laws in your niche of lobbying enacted? Who is involved? Who are the relevant politicians? Who are the politicians in your arena that are interested in this topic? Who are the opponents of this topic? How are the committees? How does this information pass through committees in the government? Where does it start? How can you build importance for this cause? Understanding the legislative process is fundamental towards executing legislative lobbying. You need to be ready to put in the hours. I would highly recommend you just start to consider this all that you do. You are constantly on the clock. You are constantly working. You won't charge that way, but there is going to be times when you're just going to sit down and work on this for an hour on your notepad and you should be charged. But you have to understand you're going to wake up in the morning with this on your mind and you're going to go to bed with this on your mind at night, and sometimes you're going to get very little sleep. It's just the nature of the work. It's not like you do this and have a leisure life too. It's full-time. Do you have any connections already, by the way? Do you know people in government already? Do you know any influential lawyers? Do you know anyone? If you don't, just like I said with other topics, try approaching your academic community first. They might know at least who you should talk to. Or call a lawyer first and express your interests and intentions of making this type of business. I'm sure you could at least get some recommendations. So beyond that, you need to educate yourself. What is your formal education? Have you studied political science? Have you studied law? In the beginning, try volunteering for a lobbying firm. You will get critical skills and build some valuable connections. And you're working for free, so it's much less incentive for them to say no. What are some niches that you can serve specifically? Well, this would be based on your interest or what expertise you've gained from experience that you already have. Then your clients are also going to be participating in this niche. And so you got to ask yourself, how are they looking at it? What do they expect to get out of it? Lobbying clients from the real estate industry is going to have a completely different set of expectations than the National Rifle Association. And maybe you're interested in serving gun ownership rights, but you're not interested in serving, for instance, the tobacco lobby. So you're going to make your decisions based on who you are. And then from there, it's going to inform how you educate yourself, for instance, about the legislative process. And then from there, you want to establish your identity. So the first thing is determine your area of focus. So it's not just about thinking about it. You make a decision. You want to set up your website, your social media. You want to present yourself as professional. You want to preferably have a physical office, which is unlike some other businesses, but this is a place where people are going to visit from time to time. It's not necessary because, remote workforces are increasingly accepted in this technological environment. However, this is still a people-to-people business, and fundamentally this is business-to-business marketing, so relationships really matter. Maybe having an office, caring a little bit more about how you dress, being cordial, willing to make appointments, willing to be on time as usual. And when you're getting started in the beginning, you do want to prime whatever network you have. So you want to contact influential people that you know, let them know what you're doing, and let them know what your goals are. Beyond that, you need to start building your network in whatever way you can. Here are some best practices if you're going to be a lobbyist. First thing is you live and die by your identity. So you always want to identify yourself and anybody you meet. Hi, my name is Ryan Perkins. I'm here to meet you for whatever reason. Smile. Be polite and professional. State a clear and concise objective. I'm here because I want you to look at pipeline legislation or business education or education reform legislation or banking reform legislation. I'm an advocate for this. Now you know who I am. I'll be back. Let's get to know each other. You don't want to use form letters. You want to appear to be communicating genuinely. There is a saying that a good politician never writes letters, but also never throws them away. So it's probably also true for a lobbyist, and especially because you're bribing people and you're threatening people, maybe writing letters is not the best idea at all. But if you are going to do it, you want to make it seem genuine. And the best way to seem genuine is to be genuine, to actually write your letters. Use the web and email effectively, of course. Never lie or mislead. Work with legislative staff. You want to get to know as many staffers around the Congress as possible, or the Parliament as possible, depending on what country you're in. And then you want to listen to elected officials' comments and questions. You want to understand what each elected official, what their agenda is and what their goal is. So that way, if you want something, you know the right politician to approach first, which would be a sympathetic ear, and then from there, they will help you roll out the process within their legislative body. And then when people help you, remember to thank them. This is politics. And even though you're not a politician, you are. This is a lobby firm, and it's very much about statecraft and person-to-person. Friendship matters, trust matters, loyalty matters, and sending gifts and thank you notes is a very powerful way to back up your commitment to that relationship. Beyond that, there's legal requirements that you're going to need to understand. State laws vary in the United States about how you can lobby officials. The government is constantly changing its law. The Supreme Court is constantly passing down rulings. For instance, I'm in Ukraine right now, and lobbying is illegal altogether. Now, I am aware of people who do it, but I dare say that on paper they are not registered as lobbyists. They're probably just lawyers, and lawyers talk to politicians. The official industry is not practiced in Ukraine, but I would say that the practice is probably practiced more than anywhere else. It's a very face-to-face type of government. So, make sure you do your legal rules and requirements study. Because in this industry, it is not hard to break the law. And it just matters what you say. Certain combination of words coming out of your mouth will put you in prison. So be careful. Now, once you're established and you understand your environment and you've identified who you are and who you want to be in this equation, you got to move on to marketing. Lobbying is really the art of knowing what people want and then structuring an opportunity that also involves leverage. So you give them what they want, they give you what you want. You give them some of your client's money, and they give you the goal your client wishes. Understanding what your client wants and then proposing to them how and to whom you can lobby on their behalf. Every lobbyist has contacts, and this is their main value proposition, actually. However, if you have money, there will be a way to approach any politician. So get the client's money and make a budget. That's your objective as a lobbyist. Structure your proposals so there is something for everyone, including you. That's the joy of this industry. It's a lot of free policies in your pocket just because you piggyback them on somebody else's. Your client wants a highway contract. The state senator wants campaign funds. You can promise the senator the client's money. Oh, by the way, you'd also like to have a liquor license for a friend. So beyond that, you have to deliver your service, deliver on their expectations and promises you've made. This is what service delivery looks like. You will eventually come down to the vote or leaning on an official of some sort. So everything you're doing comes down to pretty much those two tasks. And then after you've delivered the service, it pretty much comes down to customer service. Report back to the client often. This is a word-of-mouth industry. They can benefit you in other ways because they're just generally influential people, and at least they can recommend you to new customers. So you want to preserve your relationships. It is true in this industry as it is true for all politics. This is the industry of making friends and convincing people to trust you. And if you can master this industry, the world can truly sit in the palm of your hand. So I wish you really good luck and encourage you to lobby with responsibility. Have a good day.